My brother impregnated my fiancée, and my family blamed me. Consequently, I severed ties with them. From a young age, everyone in our family knew who the favored child was. This wasn't openly discussed, but it was evident in every aspect of our lives. And the favorite definitely wasn't me. I'm now 32 years old, and my younger brother Mike is 29. But the dynamic within our family has remained unchanged since childhood. It was clear how differently we were treated. If Mike broke something, like when he shattered our mother's prized vase, somehow the blame fell on me. "You're the older brother," they'd say. "You should have prevented him," even though I wasn't even in the room when it happened. Mike was too young to grasp the consequences of his actions, so the responsibility always landed on my shoulders. If we achieved something, his victory always seemed magnified. I recall winning a math competition in 5th grade. My mother just said congratulations briefly and returned to dinner preparation. But when Mike received a participation certificate at a soccer tournament, they held a celebratory dinner, inviting all his friends. "You won't be upset, right?" she asked. Mike always tried his best, and that was the excuse. Mike was younger. Mike was more sensitive. Mike had more challenges. And I, the older sibling, was expected to understand and accommodate all of this. This pattern continued into adulthood. When I secured admission to a prestigious university with a scholarship, my parents reacted minimally, not even bothering to visit my dorm room or assist with the move. I vividly remember arranging everything myself, taking the bus, and experiencing that bitter taste in my mouth, feeling like nothing I did mattered to them. However, when Mike enrolled in a community college, it was a different story. They threw a party, invited everyone, and even gave him a car. He worked hard for it. My father told me, "No one gave you a car. You rode your bicycle 5 kilometers a day, saving every penny to buy your books." Mike dropped out of college in his first semester, and no one seemed disappointed. "Don't worry, dear," my mother said. "You just need time to find your path." After that, they bankrolled all his entrepreneurial ventures. He opened a virtual store that failed in 3 months, tried to develop an app that never launched, and finally began selling sports equipment, another unsuccessful venture. I simply observed as my parents poured thousands of dollars into these failed endeavors. One day I asked why they continued to support him, and my mother just waved her hand as if it were obvious. Mike hadn't found himself yet. He possesses such talent. We needed to help him discover it. But I never received that kind of support. I paid for my education, working after school. When I sought help or support, I heard the same old refrain. "You're independent. That's great for you. It will make you stronger." I wish I could say this didn't affect me, but it did. No matter how hard I tried, I always felt inadequate, as if I were never good enough, not even for them, perhaps not for anyone. This disparity in treatment left deep scars. It made me doubt my worth, questioning if I would ever feel worthy. Then Sarah entered my life. We met at a friend's party. Exhausted from work, Mike nearly missed the gathering, but he persisted, urging me to relax. A group of engaging people had assembled. Sarah immediately captivated me with a natural charisma that illuminated the room. She laughed at some lighthearted story, her contagious mirth prompting a smile in me, seemingly out of nowhere. Our conversation commenced near the beverage table. She inquired about my relationship to Mike, revealing I was his elder sibling. "Interesting," she remarked with a sly smile. "Mike never mentioned you. Why the secrecy?" Our discourse flowed easily, yet possessed a depth. I realized I had shared more with her in an hour than with anyone in months. Sarah possessed the unique ability to make one feel truly seen, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly heard. We began dating, a decision I deemed profoundly beneficial. With her, everything felt effortless and natural. She supported me, celebrated my triumphs, and for the first time, I felt valued, not for what I did, but for who I was. A year later, we decided to move in together. It was a substantial step, but I was certain of our bond. We constructed our little world within our apartment. We spent nights watching series, engaged in late-night conversations in the kitchen, and crafted plans for the future. Those were the best years of my life. On our 4th dating anniversary, I made a crucial decision. I had diligently saved for months to purchase a ring, knowing she would adore it. It was a platinum band with a small, elegant diamond, perfectly mirroring her essence. That evening, I felt a tremor of anxiety as I proposed. We were strolling through the park, the very spot where we had first shared a kiss. I knelt before her. Sarah covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she whispered. For the first time, everything felt completely right. We decided against a rushed wedding, opting instead to meticulously plan the event according to our vision. Debt-free, loan-free, we would only use the resources we could afford. We worked diligently, foregoing vacations, and channeled every resource into our shared future. When we announced our engagement, I anticipated a joyful response from my family. They often expressed that I needed a suitable partner. However, their reaction was disheartening. My mother managed a forced smile, offering, "Congratulations, I suppose." My father muttered, "Hopefully it works out," and "Best of luck with that." Mike stood in a corner, his smile odd. It wasn't happiness. It seemed more predatory, as if he had glimpsed an opportunity. Following that, Mike displayed an unusual fascination with my relationship with Sarah. He would find pretexts to converse with her, posing perplexing questions and offering remarks that made me uneasy. "You're lucky," he would say. "Not everyone can manage someone so serious. Perhaps you could have found someone better, but hey, if you're happy, then..." Sarah would laugh, dismissing his comments as harmless jokes. I attempted to ignore them, but each remark sent a shiver down my spine. At the time, I perceived Mike's behavior as childish, but now I recognize it as the genesis of something far worse. 4 months before the wedding, I started noticing shifts in Sarah. She was no longer the light-hearted, enthusiastic woman eager for the future. Instead, she appeared distant and anxious. This growing concern troubled me. Everything began with her phone. Her unusual activity increased. Whenever I entered a room, she'd quickly obscure the screen or conceal something. "You're talking to someone, aren't you?" I asked one day. "Work matters," she responded, avoiding eye contact. I yearned to trust her, yet doubt gnawed at me. Each late-night return fueled my suspicions. Her excuses felt poorly rehearsed. I'd stay late in the office claiming work, but I'd catch the faint scent of wine and a masculine cologne, neither hers nor mine. I tried to convince myself it was just stress. We were working tirelessly to save for our wedding. I thought perhaps this was affecting her. Deep down, though, a nagging sense of unease persisted. A month later, amidst the changing dynamics, I noticed another shift. Sarah exuded a different aura, a newfound cheerfulness, and her appetite had changed. It took several weeks to piece together the puzzle, but when I finally grasped the truth, a jolt of happiness, almost a thunderbolt, struck me. Sarah was pregnant. I saw this as fate's intervention, a sign our future was perfectly aligned. I refrained from sharing my realization. I wanted to honor her moment of revelation. However, one evening, as she sat beside me, I sensed an impending disclosure. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Her hands clutched so tightly their knuckles turned white. "I need to tell you something," she began, her voice trembling. My heart skipped a beat. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, and after a seemingly endless pause concluded, "But the baby isn't yours." The words struck me like a physical blow. I heard them, but couldn't process them. It felt as if the ground had crumbled beneath my feet. "What do you mean?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Sarah began to speak, her voice choked with sorrow and guilt. She revealed that the child was Mike's. I could only grasp fragments of her explanation. She said it had all begun at the engagement party. Mike had cornered Sarah while I was engaged in conversation with other guests. He told her she was making a mistake marrying me, that I didn't appreciate her, and that she deserved more. "You don't value me," he'd supposedly said. She wept, stating that he'd understood her in a way I never had. He had exploited her insecurities, nurturing her doubts until they blossomed into conviction. I learned he'd painted a picture of a world of extravagant love and attention that she believed no man like myself could provide. "I was foolish," she confessed. "I don't know why I believed him." My emotions, rage, betrayal, shock, all collided. I couldn't listen further. I rose and declared, "Gather your belongings and leave." She sat for a moment, attempting to speak, but my ears were deaf to her words. Once she left, I called Mike. He answered immediately, as if he'd been expecting my call. "What did you do?" I demanded. Initially, he tried to downplay it, claiming it was a drunken mistake, a single lapse that didn't amount to anything. However, when I pressed him, his tone shifted. "Maybe if you were a better fiancé, this wouldn't have happened." The implications stung. I felt my blood boil. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys and drove straight to his house. When I arrived, I saw my parents waiting outside. My mother, arms crossed. My father exhaling a weary sigh, as if already exhausted by the prospect of this conversation. "We need to talk," my mother declared, her familiar lecturing tone instantly filling the air. Before I could utter a word, the sermon began. Mike had confessed everything, she stated. He hadn't intended for this to happen. Sarah had seduced him. I managed a frozen, almost inaudible, she seduced him. My mother repeated it, as if this explanation sufficed. He was a victim, she insisted. My brother, the architect of my shattered world, now a victim. It's not his fault, my father added, echoing her sentiment. You know how sensitive he is about these things. I stared at them, dumbfounded, unable to reconcile their narrative with the reality I knew. He was my brother, not a child. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew what he was doing, I shouted, but they'd already chosen their side. My parents saw Mike as innocent and demanded I forgive him. Family is what matters most, my mother declared, with the air of someone proclaiming an immutable truth. You can't let this destroy our family. Then, the final devastating blow. You need to support Sarah and the baby. She's pregnant. It's your responsibility to help her in this time. My breath hitched. Anger surged. This isn't my child, I almost screamed. And after what they did, I owe no one anything. My mother was offended as if I'd uttered an unspeakable absurdity. You're being too hard. We all make mistakes, she countered. You're the older brother. You have to set an example. Support them. Support them. The twisted logic left me speechless, disoriented. In the following days, their relentless pressure persisted. My mother sent messages like, "We're waiting for you to come to your senses." Mike is devastated. He didn't mean to hurt you. My father called, reiterating, "Everyone makes mistakes. It's normal in a family. Talk to him." But the worst was yet to come. Family members, aunts, uncles, and cousins, uninformed and opinionated, started calling, demanding I forgive my brother. It's just family drama, they asserted. Everyone goes through this. She's pregnant, one aunt declared. The baby is innocent. You have to think about the future. It felt as if no one understood, or wanted to understand, that I had been betrayed by the people I trusted most. My brother and my fiancée had shattered everything. My entire family had decided that the problem was me. Are you destroying this family? My mother screamed one day when I refused to speak to Mike and Sarah. You're not giving them a chance to fix things. All hope of them ever acknowledging their wrongdoing vanished. After hearing my parents' pleas for forgiveness and support, I realized that my connection with them was irreparably damaged. Each interaction left me more enraged and heartbroken. The decision was agonizing, yet unavoidable. I severed ties with them. The first step was changing my phone number. I no longer wanted to endure calls and messages blaming me for tearing the family apart. I moved out of the apartment I shared with Sarah, found a new place, and began therapy. It wasn't easy, but I knew I couldn't face this turmoil alone. My family, however, didn't seem to get the message. Initially, they tried calling from unknown numbers. When that failed, they began to appear near my new home, their presence a constant reminder of the conflict. One day, I saw my mother standing in a car across the street, staring intently at my window, as if waiting for me. I called the police, but she drove away before they arrived. When they realized I was evading them, their approach intensified. One afternoon during my lunch break, I saw my mother and Mike in the parking lot near my car, waving and gesturing for my attention. As I approached, my mother shouted, "You can't ignore us. We're your family. We're your family." I tried to walk past, but she blocked my way. "Your brother and his son need you. How can you be so callous?" she demanded. I paused, took a deep breath, and spoke as calmly as I could. "This isn't my child. I owe you nothing. Leave." That was when Mike lost his composure. "You're acting like a child," he yelled. "Just because someone's better than you. You've always been a failure." I clenched my fists but didn't respond. I turned and walked back to the office while they continued their tirade, attracting the attention of everyone passing by. But that wasn't the end of it. A few days later, a coworker approached me, her expression filled with concern. "Everything all right?" she asked. "Your mother showed up here," she continued, saying you're refusing to help the family. I was stunned. I discovered that my mother had visited my workplace, spinning tales of how I had abandoned my family and even displaying photos of Mike and Sarah to my colleagues. "He's neglecting his responsibilities," she told one of them, "and his brother is going through a tough time." And then he turned his back. It was humiliating. They were attempting to damage my reputation to force me into a position of guilt. I realized then that I couldn't continue down this path. The next day, I went directly to the company's human resources department and explained everything. My boss was understanding and even suggested increasing security measures to prevent further visits. But that wasn't enough. I filed for a restraining order against Mike and my parents. Predictably, their response mirrored my expectations. My mother called mutual friends and relatives, claiming I was unstable and exaggerating the situation. They even hired a high-priced lawyer to attempt to overturn the order in court. They tried to portray it as just a family squabble. "We just want to talk to our son," my mother sobbed in court. "He's our family." However, I had evidence, messages threatening me and videos of the incidents in the company parking lot. The judge wasn't swayed. The restraining order remained in place. It was a relief, but not exactly a victory. I knew my parents and Mike wouldn't stop trying to disrupt my peace. I hoped things would settle down after the order was granted. I began to regain my routine, returning to work, socializing with friends, and even getting back into the gym. Working out became my sanctuary, a way to alleviate the lingering stress. I'd put on my headphones, play my favorite playlist, and focus on the weights. Yet one ordinary night, this tranquility shattered. I had just warmed up and was about to start bench pressing when I saw a familiar face in the mirror. Mike was standing at the door, that same smug, self-satisfied smile that always infuriated me. I couldn't believe my eyes. The restraining order clearly stated he wouldn't leave me alone. I tried to focus on my workout, hoping he'd go away, but instead he drew closer, clinging to me, pretending it was all a coincidence. I forced myself to ignore him, but Mike wasn't one to back down easily. "Look who it is," he said as I put down the barbell. "The family hero? And how's the victim's life treating you?" I took a deep breath, remaining silent. I switched equipment, but he followed. "You're going to stay quiet?" he taunted. "Come on, you think you're so righteous, but we both know who the real loser is here." I gritted my teeth, mentally repeating, "Don't react. He wants to provoke you." But then he said the thing that shattered me completely. "You couldn't even hold on to your own wife," he sneered, moving closer. "Sarah deserved better, and you should be grateful for saving her from you." I clenched my fists, turning to him, my voice a low growl. "Do you even hear yourself? This gym isn't yours. This life isn't yours. Get out!" But Mike just smirked, leaning in. "And what are you going to do? Hide behind your lawyers?" I tried to pull away, but he shoved me from behind. That was the final straw. I reacted instinctively, throwing a punch. I didn't truly want to, but rage consumed me. We started fighting right there in the middle of the gym. People screamed, urging us to stop. Mike retaliated, but I landed another blow. Eventually, the gym staff managed to separate us. My brow was bleeding, and my shoulder where I'd hit the bench throbbed. Mike, still with that infuriating smirk, wiped blood from his mouth. "You'll regret this," he said, glaring at me. The next day, I received a notification. Mike had filed a lawsuit against me, accusing me of assault. It was so predictable, I wasn't surprised. His lawyer contacted mine, demanding compensation for physical and emotional damages. I looked at the bruise on my shoulder, a painful reminder of how far things had fallen. That incident made it crystal clear. Mike wouldn't stop. He was determined to destroy me, no matter the cost. The gym fight was the final straw. It was evident that my family, especially Mike, would never change. I was tired of trying to salvage any vestige of that unhealthy relationship. I made a decision. I was going to leave it all behind and start over. I was going to move to Seattle. It wasn't an easy choice. Leaving meant severing ties not only with Mike and my parents, but also with the life I'd built, even the good parts. I spent days sorting through my belongings, selling or donating nearly everything. As I closed the last box, it felt like I was shedding years of pain and disappointment. When I locked the apartment door for the final time, a bittersweet mix of relief and sadness washed over me. But deep down, I knew it was the right thing to do. After announcing my move, something unexpected happened. Sarah's sister, Emma, reached out to me. "I'm sorry for everything my sister did to you," the first message read. I never expected anyone from Sarah's family to stand by me, but Emma proved to be an ally. We talked, and she apologized profusely for what Sarah had done, saying even she was shocked by the incident. Sarah made a terrible mistake, Emma confessed, but Mike manipulated her. He used every insecurity she had, She had even offered to help with the move, but I politely declined. I needed to handle it on my own. To my surprise, Sarah's parents also wrote to me, sending a heartfelt letter expressing their shock and sadness over the events. They stated they couldn't justify her actions, but they had always seen me as a person of integrity. They deeply regretted the pain it had caused me. Their words were unexpected, yet comforting. For the first time in a long time, I felt that not everyone around me wanted to see me fall. My cousin Amy also weighed in. She had grown up seeing my parents give everything to Mike and never hesitated to speak the truth. This was bound to happen sooner or later, she wrote on social media. Years of favoritism and cover-ups had created a monster. Amy's public post made several relatives change their minds. She became my voice in places where I no longer had the strength to speak. Her support meant more than she could imagine. Then came the most unexpected turn of events. Sarah herself sent me a message. It was lengthy, beginning with, "I know you probably hate me, but I need to apologize." She admitted that Mike had manipulated her insecurities and exploited her doubts. He was always around, telling her he understood her like no one else, until he convinced her that I didn't value her. "I was weak and foolish," she wrote. "I know I destroyed everything and I have no excuse." She concluded by hoping I would find happiness, even if it wasn't with her. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me felt a sense of relief, a feeling of closure, but I also knew that those words couldn't erase the damage. My response was brief. "I wish you the best, but I can't have any further connection with you." Breaking ties with my family was the hardest decision of my life. I spent weeks agonizing over it, remembering childhood moments when we truly seemed like a family. But every time I thought about what had happened in recent months, them supporting Mike, ignoring my pain, showing up at my workplace, I realized there was no other way. Cutting those ties was like undergoing surgery without anesthesia, excruciatingly painful, yet necessary. I stopped responding to messages, blocked numbers, and even deleted old photos to prevent myself from being stirred by the bitterness of the past. It was my way of reclaiming control of my life. Seattle became my refuge. I found a small, cozy apartment with large windows overlooking a quiet park. It was all I needed to rebuild myself. At my new job, I met people who knew nothing of my past or the turmoil I had left behind. Their kindness and genuine interactions reminded me that not every relationship comes with demands or manipulation. Gradually, I started to trust again. I even started attending company events, something I had previously avoided like the plague. It was good to be part of a group where no one judged or compared me to anyone else. One day, while walking through the city, I passed an animal shelter. I don't know what made me go inside, but something pulled me in. There, I met Max, a large, somewhat clumsy Labrador with tousled fur and expressive eyes that melted my heart. When he came toward me, wagging his tail and settling at my feet, I knew I had found something special. Max became my safe haven during trying times. When memories of family or Sarah surfaced, he'd be there, wagging his tail, nudging my hand for affection, or settling onto my lap. Happiness could be simple and healing was possible. Amidst these experiences, a crucial truth emerged. Family isn't defined by blood ties. It's about those who respect, support, and value you for who you are, not what you can do for them. Therapy helped me shed the guilt and insecurity that had burdened me for so long. I stopped blaming myself for my parents' favoritism or Mike's behavior. Their actions were never my responsibility, and I no longer needed to carry that weight. I also learned to set boundaries and prioritize my well-being. Distance from those toxic relationships wasn't easy, but it was the only path to true peace. Looking back, I have no regrets. Severing ties with my family was painful, but it was also the most liberating decision of my life. I've built a new life surrounded by good things and people who genuinely care. On weekends, Max and I explore the trails around Seattle, and I've rediscovered joy I hadn't felt in years. My life isn't perfect, but it's mine, and that's what truly matters.